Marta Benedetto, Superintendent of Schools for another week in Hopatcong.
I'm Joseph Picarillo, Assistant Superintendent.
And Joe will be the new superintendent in a week. We have the honor of talking about the last year of school, about the future, and a quick summary of the last 3 years where I've been honored to be superintendent. My first day of school in Hopatcong was the day school opened after the mold circumstances. People often say, Art, how did you deal with the mold? I did not deal with the mold. The Board of Education did. They did a magnificent job. They were able to eradicate the difficulty at a significant expense, but nevertheless it was completely in control of then President Mr. Fasano and the other board members. Interestingly, the district had significant insurance coverage that allowed them to recover most of the costs that were put forth in getting rid of the mold situation. So I was not a participant in that. I was faced with other challenges, the first one being the emergency closing of the Hudson Maxim School. Ladies and gentlemen, in my 49 years of being an educator, that weekend was the most interesting time in my existence, where 22 classrooms were moved on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They were set up on Monday, and on Tuesday, we had relocated the entire school, 22 classrooms, 250 kids, 35 teachers, and the community that came out to assist us in that was simply amazing. I will never forget that. We made significant program changes over the 3 years. We discovered that Hopatcong High School was an excellent school for students who were going to four-year colleges. Joe, the percentage of four-year college students is about what, 30?
About 30%.
30%. We felt that we could improve the circumstances of students who went to the community college, or students who went into workforce, or students who went into the military. And part of that item was the introduction of a number of CTE programs once Joe came aboard, and those programs have started us off in a way which we feel very confidently that we are serving each and every child in the school. Joe, you want to just spend a minute reviewing the programs that we started?
Sure. So when we began work with the CT programs, again, these are career and technical education programs. So what they offer is they afford students the opportunity to, within one program, pursue a possibility of going to a four-year college or a two-year college, or going directly into the workforce with this key component, industry level certification. So one example is we just had a cosmetology student in our first year of cosmetology acquire all the hours and all the experience to pass the test, to now be leaving from the high school with the ability to work as a cosmetologist. That's unbelievable. That's an unbelievable feat for students in a pandemic to accomplish that and to save quite a bit of money in the process. We also have a broadcast journalism class that we have begun. That has been a struggle in not being able to go and see folks during the pandemic, but they're still cranking out videos and they're coming up with different ways to do that work. A student took that third party certificate exam this week, so we're waiting to find out the results of that. We're working on other programs as well. You can see that we have a child care program that every year we have students that earn their certificate, their CDA cert, to go and work in daycare facilities. We're working on construction, we're working on athletic training. We have computer science working now. So there's just quite a bit of work that we've put in getting these programs off the ground. And we're really excited about how that's working. And this is the first year, so more to come. And I'll tell you more in a second, but I'll let this guy keep telling the stories.
We also started cooperative programs with Sussex County Community College, in which students can take courses for college credit. We have also established a relationship with Seton Hall for those students who might like to attend Seton Hall when they're done. We have been busy trying to make sure that we serve all kids. The pandemic, everyone says, how did you guys get through that and all that stuff? I have to say this: our teaching staff, our administrators, did a rather unreal job in serving kids to the best of our ability. If you recall, the call for virtual instruction came suddenly, and it hadn't been done before. We did quick training, but the teachers took it upon themselves to learn what they had to do. And some are more technically savvy than others. But even the dinosaurs, such as myself, came through for us in a manner that was quite unreal. I know virtual instruction was not a popular circumstance, although there was a percentage of students who thrived on it. But for the most part, it was a significant challenge, and for our staff and teachers and kids to go through that successfully was quite impressive. We had to shut down a couple of times. That was really not a popular circumstance, but we always brought our reasons to the public. So when we had a petition to reopen schools, Joe and I had a single issue meeting on that topic. At that time, Sussex County, out of 3,000 counties in the country, Sussex County was the 22nd highest rate of infection. And we felt we were making a safe decision, and we brought it to the public. We didn't try to hide it. We didn't send a note out and say, this is what we're doing. We brought it to the public. And during the 3 years, we probably had, my first year by myself, I probably had 4 single issue meetings. And when Joe joined, we probably had a dozen altogether. And I believe the single issue meeting was an excellent way in which to communicate with people and with our clientele. Serving our clientele, we see as both a spiritual and ethical necessity. I believe I did a good job of it as superintendent, and I predict that Joe will do an even better job of it as superintendent, having the patience and the smarts that I sometimes lack. So it's certainly been interesting. The Hudson Maxim School sale was the most challenging thing that I had to put up with in my 3 years, because we had sold it once.
Wait, you're putting it in the past tense?
I'm putting it in the past tense because I have good karma on the fact that Monday we will close on the school. Monday, June 28th. The closing is set. Prior to that, we had sold it once. The sale ended up falling through. We then went to auction. We got excellent service from an auction company, Max Span, and the building sold for a significant amount of money more the second time than it did the first time. And we are, behind us across the room here are all the closing papers that we need to have the board president sign in a few minutes. But if this goes to sleep and is done on Monday, I will be leaving the district superintendency with a revenue factor of $1.2 million to the school district, and that makes me feel very well. We also sold an easement to the cell tower that's up on the fields that the district owns, the old golf course. The cell tower brought the district $2.1 million, I believe. So, despite struggling with budget cuts from state aid, which was our other gigantic challenge and will continue to be, and despite the fact that we have not used any of the revenue from the cell tower, or we won't use any revenue from the Hudson Maxim School to sustain the budget, we were allowed by the board very graciously to put in new initiatives. And that's how we got the CTE programs. That's how we expanded offerings to kids in a time where we've so far been cut over $3.5 million in aid and are still facing additional cuts in the future. So that leaves me with a very positive feeling that things went well. Things didn't always go perfectly. There are some items that if we had to do over again, we might do differently, but that is a norm. And as I said, I'm very proud to have been a superintendent here. I am very proud that things went reasonably well. And the fact that I've worked in many, many districts, Hopatcong will always be my favorite place to have worked. And again, I said that spans a 49-year career. This opportunity to say thank you to the community for trusting me in leading the education of your kids. It is a gigantic honor, and I'm very appreciative. So why don't you talk about some of the items, for example, the tennis courts and the track I didn't mention, but would you delve into that a little bit?
Sure, I'm happy to. So you're going to see, as Mr. D mentioned, there are a ton of changes that we're making to update things. The track was last summer's project. I know the community really enjoys that track. It's a beautiful green, Hopatcong green. But also the tennis courts are getting done now. One of the things that I had learned from one of our board members who spoke to some community members is the desire the community had to put some pickleball lines in. We were able to do that with the town, and that's great. Came in like maybe a couple days before we had to have the final lines put on. So I guess the thing I wanted to express is I'm very accessible. Mr. D is very accessible for the folks in the town. If you have a concern especially about something that we share in usage, definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to speak with you. And it also gives me an opportunity to just share more about the great things we're doing in this school. I think one of the things I wanted to impart in our conversation today is just to express it's very easy for conversations to start with the struggles that we're having. It's very easy for us to talk about state aid cuts, about pandemic, about mold, about any old thing that you would want to talk about that are struggles to schools. Certainly we have stories to share. But I really want to make a really concerted effort to always have positive conversations with those negative conversations. When people see each other in the town and at games and at different events that we're having, I would love for parents to talk about what are the great things that your child is doing. What are the great experiences they're having in the school? We had a graduation last year when many other school districts were afraid to hold one. This school district, in the pouring rain, said, ain't nothing going to stop us from having a graduation, and we made that a memory that these students will never forget. Thank goodness it didn't rain this year, but we had that. We had that. That was a huge positive. This year, when other school districts were shutting down their school musical, we met with the students and we said, all right, we normally have the musical early in the spring. Let's push it back as far as we can to ensure it happens, and let's just do it outside on the football field to make sure it happens. Now, thank goodness, serendipitously, it was that weekend that we were able to open up and come inside. But if we had just said, well, it's not going to happen in March, sorry, it wouldn't have happened in March, we wouldn't have had a musical. But it's because of the grit of this community that we were able to provide these opportunities for students. So the next time, members of the public, next time you're at the Acme or someplace talking to people, don't miss an opportunity to talk about that cosmetology student that got that cert. Don't miss that opportunity to talk about that football player that's going to a great four-year college to play. You know, these are the things that should lead the conversation. And then let people say, how are you doing that in spite of all the things I'm reading of budget cuts? Let that be the way we frame the conversation, because I want to have those positive conversations about it. that was a small little rant. But I'm just really, really proud of the work that we did. I had a conversation with a parent just yesterday talking about the Seton Hall courses. The parent said, "Did you know that my child picked up credits for Seton Hall at $100 a credit? It's over $1,000 a credit if they went." I said, "I know, I set up that partnership." And they said, "Well, why don't people know about this?" I said, "Well, you do. Tell your friends." So I think we have so many great things happening here. I just want to make sure that we give ourselves a little bit of credit and that we show that we really should be very proud to have the Hopatcong green.
And that's with the caveat that we totally understand that the need to improve every day is part of our mission. We are not satisfied with the status quo. We will always continue. I will for 3 months. Joe and I are sort of switching roles. I'll be around 3 months to help train the new assistant superintendent, and Joe doesn't need my training anymore. He's certainly more than ready. But we understand that there are still difficulties. We understand that we still need to do better. And we understand that constant improvement is within our soul.
And one of the things I want to share with you is Mr. D mentioned constant improvement. And absolutely, this is something that we do. We have a new assistant superintendent that's coming on board, and I just want to tell you a little bit about her. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to bring her on the camera in the coming months. Joining our team is going to be Joanna Ross. She comes from Passaic. She had been a supervisor and an assistant principal, and recently she's been the principal in Passaic in the high school there. And one of the things that she does really, really well is she had many students graduating her high school with associate's degrees because they had done so many concurrent dual enrollment opportunities at their high school. She's a champion of CTE. She's a champion of all kids, providing a comprehensive education to every student, whether that's your students that are going 4-year, 2-year, direct to the workforce, going to the military, or 25% of our students that have special needs. This is a person that's going to come with a lot of high energy, a lot of ideas, proven track record in Passaic schools, and I think she's going to be someone that the community will really, really adore. I know Mr. D and I have a lot of respect for her, so you'll get to meet her very soon. We're very excited to have about a month overlap of you and Joanna to build that relationship so that we can just continue to move forward with a lot of the initiatives.
One of the concerns as we enter into a new school year has to do with protocols related to the pandemic. Will they carry over or will they not carry over? All of our safety and cleaning protocols will, of course, continue. One concern that many parents have has to do with the wearing of masks, especially for younger children. Ladies and gentlemen, that decision is not a local decision. If it is a local decision, Joe?
No, if we are given the option from the governor, if it's up to the superintendent's discretion, myself as superintendent will not be recommending that students wear masks. We would make it optional. Certainly, none of us enjoy wearing masks, but I understand the reason that masks were put in place, and I know my duty is to follow directions from the governor. That is our duty as public employees.
So if the governor says masks are a requirement, that's out of our hand. However, if the governor says it's up to a local discretion, you heard Joseph's answer, that the masks will not be a requirement.
But I think one of the things that has been perhaps most difficult for us is the ambiguity of a lot of the governor's press conferences. Oftentimes, and I preface it with saying, governor has a very difficult job. I don't envy the job. I do not want to be the governor. However, it's very difficult when you hear from the governor that everything is open. You don't have to wear masks anywhere else. But then in schools, students, after spending the whole weekend at Scouts and at their pizza party at Chuck E. Cheese without masks, then they come to school and all of a sudden they have to wear masks when perhaps it's most important that they are comfortable in an environment in order to learn. I share that concern. As a father, I share that concern. Again, nobody wants to wear masks. And when students have that mixed understanding of masks there but not here, that was the impetus that led to us sending that letter to the governor. And I think that we sent it in a respectful way. We certainly understand there are many different directions being pulled, but we just need some clear clarification on this and consistent message. Because for our parents right now it's still June, right? We haven't crossed over into July yet. That leaves 2 months before September for schools to open. I hope and anticipate that we will get a clarification from the governor, and I hope that clarification is either masks are not mandated or it's up to the superintendent's discretion.
Joe, also, could you inform our clientele about testing, which hasn't taken place? State testing hasn't taken place in a long time, but in September and October there will be testing. Could you just mention it?
Yeah, we will have testing. As Mr. D mentioned, we've avoided state testing the last 2 years because of pandemic circumstance, and that's a direction from the state. But this year we're going to have some exams starting. The window starts right in the beginning in September and it goes through October. And these exams should not be something to lead to anxiety or any other thought beyond. This should set up an initial baseline of information for students and data source for us to see how much have students lost in terms of progress due to the pandemic and how much do we need to catch them up. So this is simply a benchmark assessment. All students are taking it throughout the state. Not something to worry about, but you will be getting more information about that in the coming month.
We currently have a Learning Pods program going on at each school, and I'm very proud of the fact that a lot of teachers who have put forth significant effort in the last year have volunteered to participate in the PODS program, and this is designed to have students catch up to some of the things they missed. So essentially we have groups of 3 or 4 students, 1 teacher, 10 one-hour sessions of tutoring with the idea that let's see where we've lost, and let's see how we can make up some of that learning loss circumstance. It's going to go on throughout the summer, and there will be funding for that to continue somewhat next year, depending upon how much is used in the summertime. But I'm predicting we will have money left over to go into the next school year. And that's by the grace of the federal government, which gave us a nice piece of change in which to deal with the learning loss.
The government giveth and the government taketh away. That's what we've been experiencing. It's been a very interesting past few months, because in the same couple of weeks of knowing that our state aid loss has been greater than we anticipated, so state aid goes down, and then we get this federal funding that it really has very clear delineated usage, and that makes it difficult for us to completely have it overtake what we lost. But it does provide us a great opportunity in the way Mr. D mentioned, and I should let all of you know that you're going to see parking lots full all through the summer, because there's a lot going on in the summer, even though schools are closed. So you heard about the pods. We also have Orton-Gillingham training for a lot of our staff members, and that means working with a lot of students. Orton-Gillingham, what does this mean? This is basically a really specialized early reading program for struggling learners. This will help our literacy tremendously, really, in those lower grades. But you will see that. You have the band that never stops. They are here rehearsing all the time. They have a big event coming up this coming week. You have athletics still pushing through. Athletes will be here throughout the summer. Lots of teachers will be here for curriculum writing. ESY for extended school year for our special needs students begins just next week. So a lot continues to go on. Our schools really never sleep, and that's important because it serves our community. So a lot to be excited about this summer. So we're very excited that in the coming days, we will be closing with a new school that is purchasing Hudson Maxim space. This is a school for Chinese students from China. It is a type of boarding school. They will live off campus, and they will be bused each day to to Hudson Maxim space. I've met with the principal several times. He is really, really energetic, really wonderful to speak to. He's a fellow musician, so we've been able to speak to him about that. But he has come and met with us in our office. We've met with him, and the intention is to work together. This is a for-profit organization. They are bringing students from China, so they're not necessarily in a competition with us for students. This is a collaborative environment that we're able to set up, and we're looking at all opportunities to work together. We've been really impressed with what they've presented to us, and the conversations will continue to grow as we go through. But this is an organization, school that began I believe it began in Summit, New Jersey. They had a school set up there in Summit for students that were, I think they went from high school, but they also went to the lower grades. But they're coming up to Hopatcong just as a high school. They're going to start very small with maybe 15, 20 students, and then they'll grow over time. But they are very optimistic about getting right to work, about having some concerts and things for the community, because they do a lot of music in their school. So we're very excited, and we'll know more about that. But the principal, E, and I, and Mr. D have had many great conversations. We're looking forward to that partnership.